A great pie starts with a great crust, tender, flaky, and sturdy enough to hold the filling without falling apart. But most recipes make you wait hours while the dough chills, and even then the crust can crack and crumble when you try to roll it out. Today, I'll show you my no-chill pie crust that comes together quickly, rolls out easily, and bakes into a crust that's both flaky and flavorful. Hi friend, come on in. Pie crust has a reputation for being fussy, but it doesn't have to be. With this method, you can have a dough ready in minutes. No ice water, no long chilling time, and no fighting with cracks as you roll. Just a simple, reliable crust that tastes amazing and works for everything from sweet pies to savory quiches. I like to mix my liquid first, before I get my hands messy. In a measuring cup, I combine 1 tablespoon of vinegar, 1 egg, and enough water to make 1 cup total. The vinegar helps tenderize the dough while the egg adds richness and structure. Skip the egg if you want an animal-free version. I give it a quick beat with a fork, then set it aside. In a large bowl, I measure out 5½ cups of flour. All-purpose works great, as does pastry flour if you can find it. Today, I'm using a blend of all-purpose and cake flour to approximate pastry flour, but most days I just stick with all-purpose. It's cheap, reliable, and I always have it on hand. I add in 2 teaspoons of salt. I stir in the salt at this stage so it gets evenly distributed. Then 1 pound of lard. Lard is my favorite for pie crust because it's a low moisture fat, as is tallow if you have it. That means tender, flaky layers without having to worry about your hands warming up the dough. No chilling required. Shortening will work in a pinch if you want an animal-free version. I don't recommend butter here. It has more water, which changes how the dough behaves and can make it tough or shrink more in the oven. To cut in the lard, I press and crumble it into the flour with my fingers. I aim for pea-sized pieces, though a few bigger chunks are fine. If you work it in more thoroughly, with smaller pieces that are more evenly coated, you'll get a sturdier crust. Leave the pieces bigger, and you'll get a more tender, flaky crust. You can actually tailor the texture to the type of pie you're making. For example, a sturdier crust works really well for meat pies or quiche, while a flakier crust shines with fruit pies. When the flour and lard look right, I start adding my liquid mixture. I pour in about half, then toss it gently with a fork. From there, I add more liquid a little at a time, focusing on the dry spots. Once tossing with the fork gets hard, I switch to my hand. I lift the moistened dough to the side so I can reach the dry flour hiding at the bottom of the bowl. The goal is to moisten everything without overmixing. The dough should just hold together when pressed, even if there are a few dry spots left. You may not use all of the liquid, or you might require an extra splash of water, and that is perfectly fine. At this point, I press everything together and give it 2 or 3 quick folds, enough to make it cohesive, but not enough to develop gluten. This recipe makes 3 discs of dough, each one big enough for a double crust pie, or 5 to 6 bottom crusts if you're baking single crust pies. I cut each disc into a larger portion for the bottom and a smaller one for the top, since a bottom crust always needs more dough. This dough can be rolled out right away. The dough will be softer, and you may need a little extra flour to keep it from sticking. When rolling out, I like to flour my counter lightly and roll from the center out. If the dough feels sticky, it may just need a little more chill or rest time. But don't be afraid to use extra flour if you need it. It's better to have a workable crust than fight with it. To transfer, roll the dough loosely around your rolling pin, or fold it in half and lift an edge to slide the pie plate underneath. Gently ease it into the corners. Never stretch the dough or it will shrink back in the oven. I try to not re-roll scraps, but I also hate wasting food, so I usually patch them into my next piece of dough. If you prefer to not re-roll, spread a little butter on the scraps with a sprinkle of cinnamon sugar, bake until golden, and enjoy some little treats. For later use or longer storage, I wrap the dough tightly in plastic wrap. It goes in the fridge for up to 2 days, or gets double wrapped and placed in the freezer for up to 4 months. Freeze as discs for longer term storage to prevent freezer burn. Thaw in the fridge before rolling. If you don't need the dough immediately, chill it for about 20 minutes, just enough time for the flour to fully hydrate and the fat to firm up a bit, which makes rolling easier. Here is a dough portion that I chilled about 20 minutes and it rolls out nicely with minimal cracking. If you chill it too long though, the fat hardens and that's why you'll see cracking or crumbling as you roll. If you're working with dough from the fridge, let the dough warm up for 5 to 10 minutes to soften it up a little and prevent some of the cracking. Here is some dough that has been in the fridge overnight. As you can see, it does crack at the edges. It is easy enough to press back together, but the dough is more brittle and a little harder to work with. The best way to work with cold dough is to allow it to warm up a little before portioning and rolling. If your recipe calls for a fully baked shell, like for pudding pies or cream pies, you'll want to blind bake. To do this, poke the bottom of the crust all over with a fork to keep it from puffing. This is called docking. Line the crust with parchment, then fill it with pie weights or dried beans. Beans are cheaper and can be reused over and over, though not for eating afterwards. If you need to seal the inside of the crust, bake until lightly golden, remove the pie weights and brush with egg wash and continue baking until the egg wash has dried. Bake anywhere from 350 Fahrenheit or 175 Celsius all the way up to 400 Fahrenheit or 200 Celsius. For an unsealed shell, bake until the edges are golden, then let it cool before filling. For fruit or savory pies, you can usually skip this and bake the crust with the filling. I do like to chill my assembled pies for at least an hour before baking. It helps the crust hold its shape. Any amount of chilling helps prevent shrinkage, especially with empty shells. And that is it. My go-to pie crust is flaky, forgiving, and ready for anything. I've been making this for years and it's never let me down. You'll see it again soon when I make apple pie and then through the holidays. I'll link those recipes here as they go live, and I'll also have a free plus printable recipe sheet linked in the description. If you love pantry cooking and baking from scratch, be sure to hit that subscribe button. I've got more recipes coming your way. Thanks for hanging out with me.